Kenya, the biggest economy in East Africa, with a population of 47 million, composed of 27% of urban and 73% of rural areas. Kenya is going through a tremendous economic transformation on both social and economic sectors, with an outstanding growth in infrastructure, education and health sectors. We tell the story of how Kenyan leaders, in partnership with Kenyan citizens, opened doors for African Peer Review Mechanism, Aprm, for the second time to deepen governance.
The founding fathers of this mechanism sat down and asked themselves, why are we always assessed by outsiders? Are we not capable of assessing ourselves?
Most of the assessments of African governments, human rights, economic development, good governance and all of that, was being done from outside the continent by outsiders like Transparency International, Amnesty International, Freedom House, World Bank, all of those. The African leaders decided it is time Africans also started reviewing the quality of governance among themselves. That is not to say you leave out the outsiders, but also you put in your own view in this very diverse area. So at the AU summit, which inaugurated the African Union in 2002, they decided on an African peer review mechanism. That is, African governments will select experts from Africa to review governments and then report to the heads of state who are willing to be reviewed by their peers. And then they discover the best practices and what needs to be done to be reformed, and that will be the basis of this discussion.
I believe Aprm is the most innovative instrument that we have come up with as Africans since independence. It's important that we as Africans look at ourselves and be able to assess how much progress we are making in the various areas of governance and socio-economic development.
The Aprm is a unique model for promotion of good governance. There's no other continent that has come up with a multilateral mechanism for promoting good governance, and especially as a voluntary mechanism.
The Aprm process is an unprecedented initiative. It is a unique apparatus that we created voluntarily to help each other, but as participating members, undertake extensive assessments in all the sectors of governance.
Kenya opened doors for Aprm on 9th of March 2003, and today 35 countries have voluntarily acceded to the Aprm. African Peer Review Mechanism, Aprm, has 4 thematic areas: democracy and political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance, and socio-economic development.
So these 4 areas were actually the focus of this review, and representatives of these sectors from various corners of this country were given the opportunity to express themselves about the achievements that have been realized since 2010. Then they were also to cite challenges, if any, that are faced, and maybe also to suggest ways in which such challenges could be tackled, suggest interventions on the way forward.
Now what happens is that you're given an evaluation of your country and told how to reform it and reform it better. So in the first round, for example, Ghana, Rwanda, Kenya, and Mauritius were reviewed. As far as Kenya was concerned, we got some very good advice on political governance, we got some good advice on corporate governance, on how it should review. Some of that has manifested itself into laws which have been enacted by Parliament.
There are 5 stages in the African peer review process: countries self-assessment, country review mission, country review report, peer review, and adoption and dissemination of the report.
The government of Kenya has commenced the process of the second Aprm country review by undertaking the country self-assessment. The country review team will visit the country to validate the self-assessment reports. The country review team is comprised of a panel of eminent persons, thematic consultants, and staff from the Aprm Secretariat.
Wide consultations with government officials, political parties and parliamentarians, representatives of civil society, media, trade unions, business and professional bodies are undertaken. This is the equivalent of an external audit.
The review team, their agenda is selected by themselves and by the African Union and the African Peer Review Office in Johannesburg. They tell us who they want to talk to, when and where. The African Union's experts come with an agenda because they know and they've read the country and they're experts in their areas, whether it's economics or governance or corporate governance and so on. So when they come here, they say who they want to talk to, and we facilitated them completely, without any question. They're able to talk to anybody they like to. They couldn't have gone to every country, but we combined counties so that they could meet them separately, and they met the majority of country officers and officials and politicians and stakeholders that they wanted to see, as well as at the national level.
One of the outstanding issues that comes up again and again is the issue of devolution. Devolution is generally accepted as a good step in improving governance in this country.
The report will cover all the period for us from 2006 up to today. Then it will be clear where there was a progress, where there was a regressive regression, what has been achieved will accompany also the opinions of the people.
Once that is done, and we agreed on this, then there is a second step, and that is the preparation of a summary and what they call an issues paper, the main outstanding issues that will go for discussion to the African Union Summit.
Upon completion of the second country review and preparation of the country's report by the APR team, Kenya is set to be the first country to be peer-reviewed for the second time in January 2017 during the APRM Heads of State Summit, under the chairmanship of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta.
I am determined with your support to see to it that the APRM is revitalized and realigns its rightful place as an effective and innovative governance tool for our continent.
President Kenyatta, very efficient, well experienced. So now really this period has shown, we have seen a tremendous positive change, a real revitalization, because he himself, President Kenyatta, his main project during his tenure is to see APRM revitalized.
You know, there was a time when there was a lull in the number of missions that we were doing. There were times even in a year we didn't do any review mission. This year we have just done 4. And you see now even Kenya is leading in doing the second review mission. So the missions are picking up. We're doing support missions. So we are very, very, very busy. So your core business, you have to up your core business. APRM is a program, is an initiative of the African Union, but its legal standing in the African Union family was very ambiguous. So it was the second element to the revitalization was to conclude the integration of the APRM into the African Union. So now we have a statute. The statute now has formally integrated and the statute was adopted here in Kenya on the margins of TICAT to integrate the APRM into the African Union. Now the APRM is a specialized agency of the African Union.
In the peer review process, the Continental APRM Secretariat submits the APR team's country review report to the APR panel of eminent persons, which in turn submits it with its recommendations to the APR Forum of participating heads of state and government. The consideration and adoption of the country review report by the APR Forum marks the end of Stage 4.
The recommendations that are given in the country review report are supposed to be integrated into the national development program. So in the case of the APRM, the country review report is accompanied by a national plan of action. And in that national plan of action, government outlines the commitments that it's going to take up against the recommendations that have been given. Says we are going to implement ABCD, and this is the estimated budget for that, and they make budgetary provision for all that.
The second review will take stock of how Kenya has performed in the implementation of its previous plan of action. And then out of this, there will be a national plan of action. And the national plan of action, of course, we have to follow up work with Kenya in the implementation. So the key thing is that out of the review exercise, the country picks up two things: good practices that they share, but they also pick up challenges.